Peace and divine salutations. The divine in me will always recognize the divine in you. For those of you seeing this for the very first time, my name is Javante Battle, and welcome to my channel. This has been something I wanted to do for a very long time, but I'm a perfectionist, so I felt like I needed to have everything in alignment, in order. Everything had to be perfect, and over time, which took years, for me to realize is that there is no perfect time to start. And so it's okay that things are imperfect because that's what gives us our flavor and our uniqueness. So if you go on my page and my channel, you'll see that I got some old videos of myself from years ago when I used to do bodybuilding. And that's what really got me started on my journey of living out my purpose, which is to support humanity in developing and growing into higher conscious beings. Because we are multidimensional beings having a human experience. And the longer you stick around, the more I will show you how that is a fact. But years ago, I became a health coach with the multi-level marketing company called Herbalife. At the same time, I was bodybuilding, and I was going to the gym 6 days a week for 2 years straight. I went from being 148 pounds to my heaviest was 190. I'm an ectomorph, super, super skinny, as you can see. So I didn't put on much weight, but I got some muscle and I got shredded and ripped. And my goal was to step on stage and compete. And I did. I can't remember what the year was. I think it was like 20, 2012 or 2013. I stepped on stage for a physique competition here in Arizona. And that was like, for me, the peak of my journey up to that point. And I say a peak because as soon as I got done with that competition, my desire for bodybuilding completely floored. I just didn't have the motivation anymore. I didn't feel the call to continue working on my body in that way. And so I stopped. And I was out of the gym, let's see, from around 2014 till about, I want to say, until recently, like 2022, 2023. But my love for health and wellness never stopped, never went away. And so, fast forward to where we are today, just to show you how I continued with my journey of health and wellness. In 2017, I started to explore spirituality. In 2013, I got baptized as a Jehovah's Witness. Um, really quick to give you backstory on that, I grew up as a Baptist. My wife grew up as a Jehovah's Witness. After high school, we had our first child together. She wanted to go back to her faith. I didn't know what that faith was about, but I was open to learn. So I did. And I joined the congregation in 2013. I got baptized in 2014, I believe. But in 2016, that's when my spirit began to truly wake up. And so I give you kind of that snapshot details so you understand the progression of how I got here today and what you're going to be receiving from my channel. So in 2016, something shifted in me. I began to kind of question. As I was at the congregation meetings and I was reading the Bible, questions started to arise that I couldn't get answers for from the congregation, from the elders, or even from the Bible. And through my search, I started to learn about what's called esoteric knowledge. Esoteric just simply means hidden, hidden from the masses, hidden from the general understanding. And so I found some esoteric knowledge pertaining to man and his relationship to nature. And that really opened my eyes, y'all, because then I began to look at the Bible and say, wait a minute, this information now doesn't seem all that true. And so the more that I digged, I started to learn the true history of Christianity and the Bible. And that's what ultimately led me to let go of that belief system. And then in 2017, a year later, is when I started to research spirituality and ways to reach higher levels of consciousness. In fact, there was one evening we were in the Kingdom Hall, and there was a brother at the podium giving his discourse. And so as I'm sitting there, as I'm listening to the brother, out of nowhere, I just hear something internally, but it was audible. And I heard higher consciousness, higher consciousness. This is not all that there is. And in that moment, it was like my body got hit with an energy surge because I kind of sat up in my chair and I started to look around the congregation, the hall. And for the first time, as I looked at the hall and I saw the brothers and sisters, everybody looked as almost as if they were dead. Like there was no vitality, there was no life force flowing through that space. Like it was like zombified. And that was kind of like a shock to me. And I was like, wait, no, there's more than this. And so that led me down a path where I started searching online. What is higher consciousness? What is higher consciousness? And it led me to a group on Telegram where this group of people from all around the world, I'm talking from North America, South America, we have folks in Europe, we have folks all the way in Australia, all pouring into this one Telegram app, or excuse me, Telegram group. And the information that they poured into this group was all about higher consciousness. So that's why I started learning about meditation. That's when I started to hear for the first time about chakras and the higher self, the higher mind. And in that group chat, there was one brother who, whenever he got onto the group chat, he would send videos of himself or audio messages. And every time I tuned in, I could feel like this energy surge, this resonance, if you will, that just made me attracted to this guy. And mind you, I've never seen him before. And in fact, he lived in Texas at the time, and I lived here in Arizona. And so as I kept just checking in and just observing and taking in this knowledge and soaking it all in, I finally mustered up the courage to ask this guy. I'm like, hey, man, what is it that you do? Because your energy, I could feel it through the app. Like, you're not even here in front of me, but I could feel your energy. What is it that you do? And that's when he said, I practice Reiki. I'm a Reiki master. Now, at this point, y'all, this was the first time that I ever heard of that term Reiki back in 2017. And from that moment, my whole life began to change. And what led after that was this expansion and this opening of the self. There's a part of me that knew where I was in my life wasn't where I was supposed to stay. It was almost as if I had reached like the pinnacle of where I was in that phase, and I was hitting that roof, that ceiling. And as I opened myself to this new knowledge, opened myself up to this group and this whole other world of information, boom, that's when the ceiling broke. And so he sent me some information. After looking at that information, I decided, you know what? Let me experience this for myself. And this is where my mind was blown, y'all. Because he then said, hey, how about I facilitate a Reiki session for you so that you can experience what this is? And I said, you know what? I like that idea because I'm the type of person that I need to feel something to understand it, right? So we set up a session, but the catch is he's in Texas and I'm in Arizona. So how is this going to work? So we set up a session through Skype. So if y'all remember Skype, right? I know it's 2025 and Skype is obsolete, no longer in conversation. Shows you how fast things can come and go, right? So we set up a session through Skype. So we're connecting for the first time face to face virtually. And he begins to share with me how the process works, how Reiki is this life force energy that emanates all living things. So as we go outside and we can feel the warmth coming from the rays of the sun, or on a windy day, we can feel the breeze hitting our body. That is life force energy. And as a practitioner of Reiki, he was able to attune his frequency. He was able to expand and uplift his vibration in order to channel that life force energy to bring forth harmony, balance, clearing, or whatever the spirit needs. And so after he broke that down for me in terms that I could understand, he then facilitated for me, y'all. And I kid you not, as my first time having an experience with energy healing, period, bar none, I was blown away at what took place. We're sitting here on the laptop. He tells me to close my eyes and start taking some deep breaths. And then I begin to feel almost like some tingling sensations. My crown, the top of my head starts to buzz. And then I start to feel almost as if this slow, gentle wave is cascading down my body. And as he's going through the session, I'm feeling more and more relaxed. There's some heat at different places in my body. And by the time he gets to my feet, I could feel my feet almost like there's electricity just flowing through my feet down into the earth. And I'm like, whoa. So something definitely happened. And so now my mind is like, what the hell? But I'm also in a state of relaxation that, to be honest with you, I haven't felt in a very long time up until that day. And so for the next 2 weeks after that, I noticed that my energy shifted. It was a complete 180. And my wife also noticed it as well. She said that there was this light kind of emanating from me where my energy felt light. I felt more happy, more easygoing, more playful, more upbeat. And I could feel that within myself. There was clarity, there was focus. So something clearly changed for me. And so that prompted me to say, let me see if he can do it again. Because if something's real and it's authentic, it can be duplicated. He should be able to do this again. So guess what, y'all? A month later, I booked another distance session and he did the same thing. And so at the end of that second Reiki session, that's when I understood, without a shadow of a doubt, that energy is not bound by time or space. And during that second session, I made the commitment that I had to learn this art, this practice and technique to understand it, to see how this ticks, to see how this works. And for me to understand it so that I could share it with others. Because I come from a family that is riddled with trauma and pain. And so I could see almost a light at the end of the tunnel with this practice of Reiki. And so that's what I did, y'all. I decided to learn from this man through Skype. So he taught me Reiki from a distance. And this was the very first time that I ever learned something like this. And so from that moment forward, y'all, again, my life continued to unfold. And so I want to just stop it there because that was a lot of information. This is just the first part of my introduction. And if you're curious to see how my life continued to unfold from that first initial experience with Reiki, then subscribe and tune in for more. And I'll see you later. Peace.